Let me take you back to the year 1732, deep in the colony of Virginia, to a small plantation house nestled among the fields. That's where a baby boy named George Washington was born, the child who would one day shape the future of an entire nation. He was born into a family of modest landowners. His father died when George was just 11, leaving the boy to grow up quickly, helping manage the family land. George never had a fancy education. He didn't go to college, and his formal schooling ended early. But what he lacked in education, he made up for in discipline, observation, and real-world experience. As a teenager, George became a land surveyor, traveling through forests, measuring lands, and learning the geography of the land that would one day become the United States. This job taught him patience, precision, and gave him his first taste of leadership. But his quiet life would soon change. War broke out, the French and Indian War, and George joined the British colonial forces. He fought bravely and gained a reputation as a courageous and skilled leader. By his early 20s, Washington was already known across the colonies. When the colonies finally decided to stand up to British rule, the leaders of the revolution needed a commander. Without hesitation, they turned to George Washington. And so, in 1775, he was named Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. It was not an easy fight. His soldiers were cold, hungry, and often barefoot. Many wanted to quit, but George never gave up. He stayed with them through freezing winters and crushing defeats. He always led from the front, always calm under pressure. It was during the bitter winter at Valley Forge that Washington's strength truly shined, not just as a general, but as a man who inspired hope. Finally, after 8 long years of war, the unthinkable happened. In 1783, the British surrendered. The Americans had won their independence. Now here's where Washington did something extraordinary, something almost no one in history had done before. He resigned his military command and returned home to Mount Vernon. He didn't grab power. He didn't declare himself ruler. He simply went back to his farm, happy to live quietly. But the nation needed more from him. Just 6 years later, in 1789, George Washington was unanimously elected the first president of the United States. He took office in New York City, and with no guidebook, no rules, and no model to follow, Washington built the presidency from scratch. He chose to serve only 2 terms, even though many wanted him to stay longer. Some even wanted to call him king. But Washington believed in democracy, in checks and balances, and in peaceful transitions of power. He didn't belong to any political party. In fact, he warned the nation in his farewell address about the dangers of division, partisanship, and foreign influence. His speech still echoes today. Washington retired once again, this time for good. Back at Mount Vernon, he spent his final years farming, writing, and walking his lands. He also made a powerful decision before his death. He freed all the enslaved people he owned in his will. He became the only founding father to do so. George Washington died in 1799, but his legacy never faded. His face is now on the $1 bill. The nation's capital bears his name, Washington, D.C. Schools, streets, and even a state were named in his honor. But more than that, he left behind a model of leadership rooted in humility, strength, and service. He was a man who could have ruled like a king, but chose instead to build a country and then step away from power. He gave up power not once, but twice, and in doing so, gave birth to a democracy. That is why George Washington will always be remembered, not just as the first president, but as the greatest.